That's good. I gave you permission.
Right, okay.
Now I see it. I am.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. We're gonna start at 6:25. Unless, are we ready?
Okay, there's 3 pages. I'll grab the other.
Start, maybe just in a few minutes. Ready to run the roll call?
The meeting is started?
Not yet. Just
Yeah.
second, yeah.
No.
Yes, cool, thank you. Hopefully we don't need as many as last time.
Once we're ready, you can give the announcement and then I'll promote her as an interpreter.
Okay.
So that way the announcement can be made in Spanish.
Okay, so I'll just do that right after the call to order.
Okay.
I think somebody's at the door.
Ellen, who do we have on live?
Oh, sorry. Somebody's at the
Phone number and 2 of our board members.
Is that phone number a member of the public? Is that our assumption?
I'm assuming so. Although
714 area.
trustee Reckler is raising her hand, so I'm assuming we're okay with allowing her to talk.
Yeah, let's open that up.
Okay.
Oh, hello, everyone. I think I'm a bit early. I meant to do it for public comment, so I apologize about that. That was an accident. Thank you.
Want to get her on the speaker?
Yeah, let me,
No problem, trustee Reckler. We're arranging our audio so we can actually hear you, but I hear that you want to do public comment.
that should theoretically work.
Just we were talking. President Reckler, you want to try talking again? We can see if we can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Now we can.
Yep.
Now we can. Thank you.
Great, so now we got the right.
Yes, you can?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's get started. We good?
Yep.
Okay, so calling to order the CVOC, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee meeting at 6:23 p.m. And I wanted to introduce Ms. Reyna, who is providing translation services. Behind her.
Oh, okay.
So if you
Buenas
just
noches.
announcement, then I'll make you an interpreter.
Yes. Buenas noches. El día de hoy, las personas que necesiten acceso a traducción pueden apretar el símbolo del globo terráqueo y escogen ustedes el idioma español. En este momento me pueden escuchar, pero la traducción será simultánea en unos minutos y ya solo me escucharán a mí por medio del canal de traducción. La junta será toda en inglés Y si ustedes escogen en inglés, la van a escuchar en inglés. Si escogen español, la van a escuchar en español. Gracias. Buenas tardes.
Gracias.
Y welcome.
Item B, roll call.
Okay, now let's start roll call. Chairperson Brendan,
Here,
Vice Chair,
you don't have to wait.
okay. Vice Chairperson Laureen Hill. Here. Secretary Ariel, here. Member Don Gosney,
Here,
Member Lynn Johnson. Absent. Member Jia Ma. Absent. Member Andrea Landing. Member Tatiana Johnson. Here. Member Andrew Buck.
Present.
Thank you. So we have, seven members present. We have the quorum.
Okay, thank you. Item C, approval of the agenda. Is there any comments on the current agenda or the order of items from the members?
And
Yeah.
on the minutes for August, I have to add that I wrote them. Now with that, do I wait till we get to those or what do I do?
Yeah, why don't you make that,
I can approve them as amended.
yeah, why don't we amend them, in item D?
Okay.
All right, hearing none, we'll approve the agenda as is. Item D, we have 4 sets of minutes that are attached, February, March, June, and August. We're hoping to approve those in one fell swoop.
yeah,
One by one?
yes. Sorry.
So, does anybody have any comments on any of the minutes?
I do.
Sure.
Okay, you want,
You want to start with February?
you might as well, since that's the first one. We've got some errors in there, typos, wrong names. And it's just Christine is actually Christian. On the page 7, item J, but you've got things that are on there that shouldn't be in the minutes. I mean, you don't put a link to be able to check or click onto the webinar on something that happened 11 months ago. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, it should not be a part of the minutes, but this is something that's common. But also, I have a problem with just saying that somebody made a comment without knowing what the comment might have been. Doesn't have to go into any great detail, but a person should have reasonable expectation of being able to read this and have some idea about what happened there. I mean, we have all kinds of information by the presenters, but nothing by the commenters. And I think that's just it should not be that. We're seeing it by individuals and even just like under Q, public comments were received. Well, what comments? I would just like to see this thing again revised to be more reflective of that, and also increase the font size. There are an awful lot of old people in this district that can't read 10 or 12 point font. Well, I typically use at least Garamond 16, but it doesn't have to be that, but it's easy.
Well,
I want you to be able to hold it up and I can read it from a distance, but
14 is
14 at a minimum, but again, it depends upon what fonts you use.
Waste a lot of paper that way, huh?
Right here.
Well, everything's electronic, so okay.
Okay, thank you, Don. So general comments, I would assume on, any of the minutes that don't have the sufficient detail is what you're sharing.
That would be correct. I mean, I have comments on some of the other minutes, but for that particular one. I figured one of those are comments I got.
Yeah, okay.
Brenda,
Yes.
this is
Right.
the old argument that we always have. Are we following the Roberts rules or are we doing it by the way we want to do it? Now, we can do that, but I think we have to wait till the bylaws are done. This was just like, Tammy said to do it. It was copied from a Tammy one. So you can't expect, if this is the way we're doing it now, and expect it to change it to the way you'd like it to be. I think we have to wait till the bylaws are out.
And for the new members, Tammy was the parliamentarian that was working with us through, who was giving us direction on running the meeting and taking this.
And I think just like in the ones that Don wrote, where you had the comments and all, I don't think we should change those either, because, you know, it's been done, it's over with. But once we get the new bylaws, then I think we should go up by those.
Yeah, Don, before we go back to you, anybody else have any comments on the minutes? Okay, Don?
If you want to go back through the videos, every time Tammy tried to shove that down our throats of having bare bones action minutes. The meeting started, we talked about one thing, we ended the meeting. That's it. That's all that Robert's rule says you have to have on there. Every time that she tried to shove that down our throats, I voiced my objection to it. Not just on this, but on the other committees that she was a parliamentarian on. Again, I disagree. I believe the minutes should actually reflect what happened at the meetings, and that the people, a stranger should be able to pick up the minutes and be able to read it and understand what happened at the meetings. And we've got the same kind of problem with our school board. You can't follow what actually happened at the meetings. And that is burning them in the rear end, because it's showing a lack of transparency, like they're trying to hide something. And we can't control what the board does, but I would certainly like to hope that we can control what we do and put in items into the minutes so that people can read it and have a general understanding about what happened there. And if you want to wait until we actually pass these bylaws to do something like that, you can do that, or you can try to make amends for what we were trying to, what Ms. Dunning was trying to force down our throats.
Right, thank you. Lorraine?
And that's my suggestion, is because the bylaws do supersede Robert's rules. We don't have to follow Robert's rules. But I think this was the training that the secretary had at the time.
I understand.
So leave these be and leave yours be, so both types are there. And then when we decide as a group how we want to do the bylaws, or how we want to do the meeting minutes, then I think we should, that's just my thing.
It's whatever this group wants to do. That's that I want to go on record as, once again, as objective. That's why the problems. You're going to go back to our minutes on something like this. You're never going to see that where I voiced my concern or objection to it, because it just said Don Gosney commented.
Yeah.
If it said that at all.
Yeah, okay. So we're gonna try to approve these minutes tonight. And I appreciate the comments. And we've been, kind of, one of the reasons we have 4 minutes on the calendar or the agendas, because we've had this conversation a few times. So there is disagreement. I think it's important that, if you're not in agreement with the way the minutes are written, that you vote accordingly. If you'd like to get these things approved, you'd also vote accordingly. So, thank you everybody for the comments. I'd like to move forward with a motion to approve all the minutes.
So there are other comments on some of these other minutes.
We're gonna move on from it, Don. So we're not gonna take individual comments on each of the minutes.
Even if there's errors.
Apologize. Yeah,
So we're going to approve minutes that we know are incorrect.
you don't have to if you don't want to.
No, but that's what you're
Don,
suggesting.
we're moving on from this. I'd like to call for a roll call vote for
Whoa.
approval of these minutes. We had opportunity to discuss, talk, you shared. Thank you. We're moving on to approve the minutes. If they don't get approved, we'll put them back on the calendar, the agenda next time, okay? Can I get a roll call vote to approve all 4 sets of minutes that are on the agenda?
Yes.
You need a motion.
And a second.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah, I do the minutes.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Okay, roll call.
I'm sorry, I heard same person names.
You gotta say your name, because if you're listening to the tape or whatever, you don't know who's saying.
I heard the same
We're actually-
same person.
We're under the small board rules, and so we don't really need a second. We can move forward with a motion to approve a vote based on the motion.
President,
Yes,
Andrew,
Abstain, I was not part of the board during these meetings.
Ariel, yes, sorry.
All right, I'll approve.
Andrea, Tatiana,
I'm actually gonna say, though, I wasn't here for the minutes either.
John, sorry, Don,
It's a no on 3 and a yes on 1. I don't have any choice. I objected to 3 of them, but you want me to object to my own minutes.
what's your vote, Sean?
I will abstain as well.
so we have 3 yes, 3,
One, two,
4
three.
yes.
4 yes. 4 yes, 3 abstain.
Okay,
So we, move to approve, all the minutes.
Mhm.
okay, so then when minutes are approved, thank you. Item E, my comments, I would like to read the land acknowledgement statement, and then I have a few other comments. We recognize that we are presently on the lands of the Chichonyo, Muwekma, Parkin, Ohlone peoples, and acknowledge them as first inhabitants of the land we currently occupy. Land and body recognition. I acknowledge that the burden of environmental exploitation and systematic injustice falls upon the labor of Black and brown bodies in the building of this country and its institutions. I remember that Black and brown people were born and died working this land against their will for generations. I also acknowledge the continued contribution of the labor of survivors over the centuries to today, all of immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented peoples in the building of what we refer to as the United States by Dr. Rochelle Rogers Ard. I'd also like to highlight a community organization that I've been in conversation with and reached out. Fierce Advocates. We have their link here in our agenda, taken from their website in their own words. Fierce Advocates amplifies the voices of Black, Latinx, and other parents and caregivers of color. We partner with them to advance equitable access and opportunities for all youth to have quality education and families to achieve emotional and physical well-being. We realize our goals through healing, centered care, leadership, development, and parent-led advocacy. The relevance to our group, the Community Bond Oversight Committee is Community Education and Leadership Institute that they offer for folks that are interested in serving on boards and commissions, educating and empowering community members who are serving on those boards and commissions. So just wanted to highlight that work, and I think there's possibility for partnership with this organization as we move forward, making, grow our board and support our members and engagement. And then finally, the election of officers tonight. Like to, encourage everybody to, consider service on the executive committee, by either self-nominating or accepting a nomination from our membership tonight. We have the three positions of chair, vice chair, and secretary. And in very brief, the job description in my mind, very briefly, the chair sets the agenda, the vice chair helps, and the secretary takes minutes. Those are the jobs. And then you can expand your scope of work as you see fit.
And if the, excuse me, and if the chair is not there, the vice chair runs the meeting.
Exactly. Item F, public comment on non-agenda items. Are there any hands or anybody in the room?
Yes, we have a hand.
All right, let's take that public comment.
All right. President Lickford?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Hello to the CBOC, Leslie Reckler, trustee, West Contra Costa Unified School District School Board. Happy New Year to the CBOC, and I thank you for your service. I just have two quick updates. The first is that the Board of Ed met on Saturday, January 10th, 2025, and it looks like I will be the CBOC liaison through the next election, which is mid-December 2025. And myself and Trustee Hernandez look like we will be the members of the CBOC selection committee should you have applications to review. There will be a formal vote of the board's discussion in January, and so I just wanted to let you know that that is planned to happen. Second, the superintendent or the superintendent's designee, who is most likely Ms. Payne, will reach out to plan a joint CBOC meeting with the Board of Ed sometime in the spring. And so I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And then that month usually is, for the joint meeting, is usually March.
So it's typically March, and later in the agenda, we have a proposed CBOC calendar, which has that proposed date on it.
Okay.
I see no other public comment.
Okay. And then item G, public comment on agendized items. I know we have one. You have a comment?
Yeah, my name is Brian Scott, and I'm a member of the public, and I submitted some written public comments on agenda item L, and I think they're all self-explanatory, and I'm here to answer any questions that might arise. Thank you.
Brian, would you like to read any portion of those, or?
I don't, no.
No, okay, all right. Thank you for submitting those.
Are we able to see those comments?
So I have them in my email, and they have not been included in the packet, so we have to either read them. I mean, we could read them during the item that we're discussing.
If you email those, I can send those to share so everyone can have it in writing.
Brendan?
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but I think there's a Brown Act regulation that says that comments made in advance of a meeting within a certain period of time need to be copied and available for the public at the meeting. So, and I'm not sure, but I would like, since I worked on these, got them to you and other officers of the committee Saturday morning, as soon as I could after the agenda packet was published. And so it would have been nice to have them available to members of the public for discussion when item 11 or item L comes up.
okay.
Thank you.
Sounds like we can get that done. I know if you got that. Okay, so moving on to CVOC business action items. Item H is election of officers. So I'd like to go ahead, we'll go ahead and go through the election process, chair, vice chair, secretary in that order. And we'll, I would like to call for nominations for chair. What's the gavel?
Well, you're not gonna do general one?
I'm not nominating myself.
Oh, I nominate Brendan. With somebody else's. John. Chair?
It was made clear to me a year ago that I was past my sell date, that I was told that old people like me need to step aside and let young people. That ageism doesn't sit well with me.
Second, and if you want to nominate Don.
No, I know, again, it made clear they don't want me.
No, I'm glad to nominate Don.
I'd like Don.
Second,
Third.
We want you.
Fourth.
it was either that or secretary. And I don't know whether-
Yeah, you want to do
So there's nomination for Don for chair. Assume we have to ask him if he accepts it.
No, I said it was made clear. That, yes, that what I have to offer is not wanted.
Well, we're in a new era now.
New sheriff in town.
2025 is different, yeah. New rules. Love age. We're being wise.
All right, I'll put my name in.
All right.
All right. So I think the last time we did this, we did each one individually. You guys remember? Half you guys weren't around last year, but do the voting and then move on to vice chair, or should we take all the nominations?
No, because sometimes you've got people that are not elected in the higher office want to still be available for the next higher office.
Yeah,
You don't have people nominated for 2 or 3 offices. I mean, if you or I, for instance, don't get elected as chair, we might want to be vice chair.
right.
So you do it one at a time.
So take a card or two, actually take a couple cards, pass them down, 3 cards. We might need more, but for now. So write the
Yeah.
Don't like this whole writing a name on a card business.
Not gonna be picking, we're not gonna be picking out of a hat, don't worry.
What are we doing? with
So
this?
at the top, write the office, so chair, and then, your vote for chair, and then your name.
No, not a secret ballot, because you put your name on it.
We didn't do secret ballots last time. It was all transparent.
Right.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't matter. It has your name on it.
So we put, the
The
name.
name of the office, so
name of the
chair,
office, And then
And then
a
your
vote yes or
vote.
no, or someone's
the
name.
name of the person you're voting for.
Okay, but the only person nominated is Don.
Correct.
What about you or not?
No. I'm not accepting the nominations. Thank you, Kashi.
Thank you.
And then finally your name at the bottom.
Very much.
Uh, pass them back this way.
With my comments on his comments.
Hold it 5 times.
Yeah. Don't wish.
Okay, so. We've got 1 vote for Dawn from Andrew. Got a vote for Dawn from Andrea. Got a vote for Dawn from Tashiana. Vote for Dawn, for Dawn. Vote for Dawn from Lorraine. Vote from Dawn from Ariel. Vote from Dawn from Brendan. Unanimous.
Well, thank you.
It's been made clear.
I hope that erases. Congrats.
Thank you.
All right. Next is vice chair.
I got it.
Up at top, vice chair. Does everybody have the cards they need? Number?
Do we need to nominate first or?
Yeah, we do. We do need to nominate. So nominations are open.
I want to nominate Brandon.
Second that.
Yes,
So,
Sure. Anybody else? Okay. So,
I'll make a motion that we declare the victor by acclamation.
yeah, I think we can do that. That is, any objection? Okay, I will serve as vice chair. Nominations for secretary.
Like to continue.
no, I nominate him.
Well, I term out in March.
So she's only got 2 meetings left.
Yeah, so I won't be on the committee after March. I've been here 6 years, please.
thank you for your service.
We need to speak loud enough so that. it can be
Sorry,
recorded.
I was asking if she'd like to do it again.
Do you think if I'm doing a good job?
I think with direction, you will do a fine job.
I think we have people who are more qualified than me.
You want to nominate someone else?
Yeah, nominate the person down here.
Tashiana? Minutes.
I'm learning first and then I will go,
There's
I will go. for
One
it.
surefire way to learn. Good
Yeah,
job.
not yet. I'm still learning what minutes are. But I got you there.
Andrea?
No.
I was gonna nominate Andrew.
I'm too new. I'm too new. I don't
He's
want
hiding under his cloak of.
I will nominate Ariel and make her decline if she wants, but I'll take her, twist her arm.
I'll
I think
second.
you're doing a great
I
job.
think I heard her say she would do it.
Yeah, I think you're doing
Well,
great.
I'm still, not. You need to be nominated.
Are
Second.
you being coerced? Are you good?
Okay. You want? I can, try to continue.
Thank you. Okay, so, we have one, nominee, so by, acclamation.
Acclamation.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right.
We
We have our crew.
Way to save some paper, Don.
Well, I'm saying, I still feel
He's
that,
gonna use it for the minutes next time.
I got vice chair on there, I got secretary on there, trying to reuse it, but.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Where are we at? Item I. Approval of the annual CBOC meeting calendar.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Following kind of the formula for previous year, we have a proposed meeting calendar here. So traditionally, we've met, it's page 26 in your packet, if that helps. So typically we meet the second Monday of the month at 6:15. And so there's flexibility with that. It's whatever best supports the committee. But that's what we followed here. There are also 2 dates in red. So the Board of Education has adopted their calendar for the calendar year. So the meeting on September 9th is already in the board approved calendar, and that's the joint meeting in the fall. The proposed joint meeting for the board and CBOC in the spring is March 18th. And so one of the other questions was if there was a desire to consolidate and just have the joint meeting in March. Some of the key topics in March traditionally, according to board policy, in March, we would bring the draft bond performance audit and the draft bond financial audit to the CBOC and the board as a draft for comments and review. By statute, it's due the end of March. So having the joint meeting in March creates the opportunity to review the draft audit together before it's made final. And if there are any revisions or changes, it creates the opportunity for the auditor to make those before the report is made final. The second topic that we've heard, from President Reckler and our CBOC liaison is an update on the annual report from the CBOC. So also from statute, that's one of the key deliverables of the CBOC. And so while that meeting is just a couple of months out, those are some of the topics that we'd like to propose to bring to that meeting. And so happy to answer any questions. We received some questions earlier today from a committee member about this proposed calendar. You'll see that we noted here that October 13th is school is closed that day. That is Indigenous Peoples Day. And so we would recommend that maybe we pick a different Monday in October. The question was also raised that we have a meeting on November 10th, which is the day before Veterans Day. We will be here at work and we're happy to meet that day, but we understand that for some people that might be a long weekend. And so I just raised those for your consideration and discussion.
I'm sorry, November 10th is Veterans Day?
No, it's the day before. So it being a Monday, it's Saturday, Sunday, November 10th is a Monday, and then November 11th is the holiday. So it might be hard. Some people might not be available that day. And so we just, thanks to committee member Humes, we just wanted to raise that. So we'll be here and we're happy to meet that day, but I just share it for all of your consideration.
Yeah, Don?
I would recommend that both for the October 13th and the November 10th meeting, that we not make any decision at this point, that we may have new members, hopefully 2 more members over the next 3 or 4 or 5 months. And then we just wait till something like June or July to make a decision on what to do on those 2 dates. We've done that in the past.
This is just for discussion, right? There's no vote on this.
We would like
We need
for
to
it to
adopt
be
it, I think, right?
approved, in particular, just because then everybody knows the next meeting in February, and then also planning for March if it's 1 meeting or 2. Because the board would also need to adopt for their calendar the spring meeting. I'm hearing that, it might be good to maybe focus on maybe the first half of the calendar year. And this is, of course, something that can be revisited and changed. But it's also a good way to share with the community when the meetings are and a cadence for the meeting. So hopefully that can, increase attendance.
So on the issues, I think it would be good to kind of, adopt this with our best with the knowledge that we have now and the availability that we all have, in the room. And so I would suggest that we push the October, November dates 1 week ahead. So it would be October 20th and November 17th. That's just a proposal, and then we should discuss what we want to do for the March meeting. Don, you had a comment?
Well, I was gonna make a motion to approve this with the exception of those two dates, but, to be revisited later, but I can live with what you suggested.
Okay. So as of now, we have our regular meeting, on March 10th, and then the following week, the meeting, joint meeting on March 18th. Does anybody have any comment on that one?
I think maybe it makes sense to skip the March 10th meeting and just do the combined.
Oh, yeah, I see,
We did discuss that. We have, I think people have, and Don, go ahead.
So I know that this is something that comes up every year when we do this. There's an awful lot that happens. I mean, that we need to stay abreast of. And when we skip a month, because we will not be able to talk about any of our business at all on these joint meetings. Zero, none. It's chosen by other people. There's only 3 items that are put on that agenda. And they rarely have anything to do with the specifics that we won't be able to address the financial reports at all for 2 months. That kind of thing. So there is a value to having a meeting for the CBOC. We won't have any be able to talk about any of the schools that are going on. Right now, we got big things going on with Stige. We want to know, and Lake. We might want to find out what is going on in March with those 2 schools, and if there's any other things going on. So I would not recommend that we just skip. I know it's real easy to say, well, just keep skipping meetings.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was the case. So that being said, I would agree.
Yeah, well, I do, with all due respect, just want to say that we have a lot of agency in drafting the joint agenda with the board. So I thought the last meeting was productive. And I think it's unfair to characterize those meetings as not ours. It is a joint meeting, and there's genuine, willingness to jointly craft that agenda. So I just want to, that was my experience this year, and I hope that we can continue to do that in the future. Now, that's beside the point of needing to do other work and needing to have, maybe there is restrictions to that agenda because of timing, and it's a joint body. So it may well be worth having an extra meeting, but I just want to say, there's agency that we have on this committee to help set that agenda.
If I could just add on that really quickly, absolutely, that's true. So, board leadership is proposing March 12th to be the agenda setting meeting for the proposed joint board CBOC meeting. The reason why I mentioned the audits being reviewed is because that's part of board policy. And so, CBOC and board looking at the draft audits before they're made final, that's gonna happen in March of every year. And then I also mentioned the annual report, because that's a topic that has, come forward. And since March is right around the corner, we just wanted to share that with the committee as soon as possible. But absolutely, the recommendation that we currently have that's just proposed is with a joint meeting on March 18th. That the agenda setting with the board leadership and CBOC leadership would be March 12th.
Okay. The only thing, the other thing to keep in mind is, just that we need to make sure we can get quorum for these meetings. And so, we have had trouble with that in the past. We are a bigger board now. It's great. But that's just a consideration as we add, contiguous, meetings.
Yeah, I think because we are having, it's been suggested that we have the audits, both audits given. The company comes and they, over Zoom, and they give the full audit, and then, we can ask them questions and things. That's gonna take a while. So to get the construction reports and everything, and I think it would be really pushing it, and would the board be interested in that sort of thing? So I would suggest having the 2 meetings, but,
Don?
Appreciate what you said about your experience with the agenda setting for that, but I went through 12 of those. And kept coming in with things that our CBOC wanted to talk about. Sometimes, so it was a wish list a lot of times. I mean, I come in there with 12 items, I know we're not gonna do 12 items. But every single time I had between whoever was the Melissa of the day or the superintendent of the day say, no, we're not gonna talk about that. And just plain directing, or the board president at the time. No, we're not gonna talk about that. And yeah, they would just start slashing off the things that they would just refuse to talk about. So, yeah, there are restrictions about what we're allowed to talk about on there. And unfortunately, because the audit are involved there, that's one of the 3 items on there. So it doesn't leave us a whole lot of room to be able to discuss other things that are important to the CBOC, and especially, again, the things that we're tasked with doing, reviewing the financial reports. I've never been to a joint meeting where that's come up.
There you
I suggest we focus on our agenda to decide if we want to approve or not approve this or.
Well, we were discussing whether to have a second meeting in March, and that, I was saying, yes, we should.
Well, it sounds like the consensus is to do that,
Yes.
have both meetings in March. I was the only one that suggested otherwise, but I think that's from lack of experience.
So last question I have is there any, I know it's, maybe difficult to tell, but is there any, can people look at any dates and know that they're not able to attend at this point in terms of vacations and things like that? So with that, the proposal is to keep the 2 March meetings, to move the October to October 20th. That is the Monday, right?
That's
And then November 17th.
Agenda is not here.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's unfortunate. We can always come back to this, we just approve and then, we can always come back. It's not set in stone. But we will need to have our February date set and,
if we don't have a quorum, then we can set it for later, but I think we'll have a quorum.
Give it a shot. I said we could give it a shot.
okay, so yeah, so just the 2 changes are October 13th to 20th and then November 10th to 17th. Yes.
I make a motion to accept the calendar as amended.
Okay,
I second it.
second, okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, there's our calendar.
Thank you.
Thank you for adding that to our agenda. Item J, district reports, bond program progress and status report. Ellen.
Good evening, everyone. Those potentially new, I'm Ellen Mejia Hooper, the Director of Facilities Planning and Instruction. I'll apologize beforehand. I am recovering from a cold. So most likely I'll make it just fine through this. All right, here we go. Maybe. For the project status updates, we typically start with this summary chart that lets you know the different bond projects that we currently have active. We have moved Stage campus replacement into the design category. At the previous board meeting, Alton Construction was approved to be the design builder in partnership with Perkins Eastman as the architect. So that project is getting kicked off. And they'll have additional updates as the design develops. For the Kennedy modernization, that is a lease back. We're currently reviewing design and development drawings. We had a great, page turn. Oh, no, we have a page turn for Kennedy scheduled for Thursday to go through the documents with our maintenance departments to be able to ensure that the designs that we're bringing forward are going to be able to be maintained throughout the life of the project or the life of the buildings. Richmond's page turn, which is the next category, was last Thursday. So that was successful. And then we also have the Kennedy's Critical Needs Project, which is the demolition of the 100 and 200 building. That is getting completed through a variety of small projects. We have completed most of the temp housing small projects as well as the boiler room renovation, which allowed us to relocate our low voltage head-in equipment. Or prepare the boiler room for that. The admin relocation project is actually where we're relocating the physical panels or providing new panels. And that project is currently under construction. We also have the official demolition project that is ready to be bid. For the construction, we have Lake Hercules that I have additional slides on later in the presentation. And Faneuil Valley Hillside, we did get geotechnical review. It's complete from California Geotechnical, which is great. We've been working very hard to make that happen. We are currently in negotiation with an architectural firm to be able to submit the documents to the Division of State Architect, which is the next approval process that we need before we're able to do the construction project. So that's in progress. And then Shannon, we have additional slides as well to cover that construction. Any questions on the summary page?
We have some new people here and some of us that are not quite as sharp as we think. Can you please explain to us again about what is lease back? It sure sounds like somebody else is gonna own our high school and we get to lease it back from them. I know you brought this up before. It didn't sink in very well with me. So I could use a little help, but you got two brand new people here that may not know what lease back is. They may be reading that and seeing the same thing I am.
Understandable. So lease back is a different delivery method. The traditional delivery method is design bid build, where we have an architect who designs. We take those drawings out to the public and let any contractor who wants to bid on them. We take the lowest bidder, and they're the contractor who constructs the project. In a lease back format, it allows us to have the architect and the contractor involved from an earlier stage. So we enter into what's called pre-construction services with a contractor, which allows us to be able to have construction reviews and estimates and different collaborative design that can produce a better project and a smoother construction, especially in these larger projects where we have multiple phases that need to be completed. It allows us to blur the lines a bit between the design process and the construction process, which is very useful because we're able to do things like early potholing or a variety of sub phases that just is much more complicated when you don't have a contractor on board early. As far as the actual lease mechanism, I'll pass that on to Melissa.
So there's 3 different delivery methods that are listed up here that you see in the column under type. So Ellen shared a little bit about design bid build is the most common. And so in design bid build, you hire the architect and they do a design, and then you put that design out to bid and you hire your contractor. So you design it, then you bid it, then you build it. So in that situation, the district has a contract with both the architect and the builder, 2 separate contracts. Lease, back, and design build are more collaborative, procurement. Procurement is what we call whenever, like our bidding structure that we follow. So in design build, the district has one contract, and in that contract, we hire the design builder. And so in that case, the architect and the builder, they're on the same team. So one is typically the general and then one is the sub. In lease back, the district still retains two contracts. So we hire the architect as well as the lease back contractor. And so we can bring a more comprehensive presentation on delivery methods. That's a lot of information. But as Ellen shared, we're currently under contract for both Kennedy High School and for Richmond High School with the lease back contractor for pre-construction services. And so this is a very collaborative space, and then we will bid. We'll come back to the board with what will essentially be that then lease agreement. There is a lease back, and this is where it gets pretty technical about, we could talk more about retention and how that structure is going to be set up. But I think maybe we'll save that for a night when we can do a more comprehensive.
But at no point in time is our land leased away from the district. Ownership of the land is maintained by the district throughout the process.
That's correct.
Now, where's the money? Do we still take bond money to pay for all this stuff as it's going on?
Absolutely. And so all of these contracts are funded primarily with bond funds. And so an example, so typically almost all of the contracts and all of the projects that we bring forward to the CBOC are funded with bond dollars. Recently at the board meeting on December 18th, we brought forward the recommendation for the design build contract. And on all of our board crises by board policy, we list the account codes that are funding any type of contract. So we always list that. For Stage, for example, the majority of the funding is coming from the bond program. However, there's an additional funding source that's also funding that Stage project, and that's Fund 25. So Fund 25 are developer fees. It's another type of restricted facilities funding that the district has. And so in the building of Stage, we will have transitional kindergarten facilities. So TK is a new grade for us. That's not a grade that we had 10 years ago, right? We had preschool and we had kindergarten. So we now have TK. And so TK is a new grade, and it requires student housing for a program that we didn't previously have. So for the Stage project, the majority of the funding will be from the bond program, but we will fund the transitional kindergartens using Fund 25. Very similarly at Lake. So the majority of the funding is absolutely coming from the bond program, but sometimes we take additional funding sources to augment the budget that support particular types of improvements that qualify for that other type of restricted funding.
What's the advantage of lease back?
So one of the big advantages of lease back is that collaborative process. So when you do design, bid, and build, you have an architect that puts together the design. Then you go out to bid. And in public contract code, it is the lowest responsible bidder. And then you contract with your contractor. But at no point did your builder, your contractor, have a chance to have their engineers and the design engineers work together on the project. And so what both design build and lease back provide is the opportunity for these like pre-construction type services. So things like constructability review, You have your builder who's able, and their key consultants, right? So mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire, some of the key consultants. Working with the design consultants. One of the reasons why we thought lease-leaseback would be a really good delivery method for Kennedy and Richmond is these are long and complex projects. So both of these high schools are going to be occupied throughout construction. That's tricky. There's multiple phases to these projects. And phases aren't clean and separate. So for example, where the demolition is taking place at Kennedy, that's where, so kind of phase 1.1, right? We got to demo the existing buildings, because that's where the new construction building is going to go, right? And so then when you have your new construction, you relocate students into new construction, and now you have other areas of the campus that you can vacate then to do the additional work. 100,000 details in all of those places. And so the design development documents that Ellen mentioned, those are particular for the new construction phase. And so the architect's working on multiple phases at a time, et cetera. And so lease-back, we thought for the complexity of the high school projects, provided a really good option to ensure good value for the district.
Now, on the design build, you said the architect and the builder are together. So how's that different than the lease? Why is lease better than that?
So in design build, the district has one contract with the architect and the contractor together. In lease-leaseback, the district has the contract with the architect as well as with the lease-leaseback contractor. I would argue that it gives the district more control than design build, right? So for each one of them, there is a shade of different. Both design build and lease-leaseback are used pretty extensively in the private sector. They've opened up more to school districts more recently. They require that we bring a resolution to the board before we can use these we call them alternative delivery methods. So we have to come to the board and get the board's approval to use those types of delivery methods. And so that's a big difference between design build and lease-leaseback is the contracting relationship with the district.
There is a logic to the words lease-back, right? And is there an explanation for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question.
So in lease-back, there is still a competitive process. Let me pull this up really quickly.
I had plans for after this meeting. Now I'm gonna be spending and looking up and reading about lease-back.
So I'd be happy to bring like a full presentation on it. And I do think that some things can get stuck on the words. I'm a visual person, so I like to see things, and I didn't have that prepared because I didn't know that we were going to talk in this much detail tonight, but I'm happy to bring that to another meeting.
I didn't want to belabor this tonight because we got a lot of other stuff going there, but I know the guy that's going to be running the meetings after this. I bet you we can put this on the agenda.
Yes.
I just have one question about it, about just the collaborative effort, like differentiating between the two. Sounds like with lease-back, they're able to collaborate more together, but I don't really understand how that differs from the design build with two separate contracts. I mean, it's still a collaborative effort, but like, how is it greater and more beneficial?
So I don't think either one of them is greater or more beneficial. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, delivery methods are a tool to provide for the project's needs. And we've been really specific about how we use each one of the project delivery methods to really provide the most bang for the buck for that type of project, right? And so I would hesitate to say that any of the delivery methods are better or worse for anything. they all have different, advantages and disadvantages, and depending on what type of project it is, really differs on which advantages work best for the district and which disadvantages are minimized. For long, complicated, multi-phase projects, leaseback allows you to not know as much about the totality of the design while still bringing the contractor on board. For design build, you really need to know the totality of your project when you bring the contractor on board. And so those two allow you kind of a different place. There's also, while the architect has a responsibility always to provide a complete and I mean, they stamp the drawings, so they are responsible for the design no matter what. But in a design build, they are actually contracted under the general contractor, which puts a little bit different spin when you're reviewing submittals and different things. That is not the case with the leaseback, where they actually are two separate entities and they're both contracted through the district. So it depends on what we're trying to accomplish, on what the delivery method we really select. And so the complications of the Kennedy Richmond projects versus an elementary school where we have a clean site, nobody's on site, we're ready to rock and roll. It needs to be fast. Design build had more advantages for that than it did for our high school projects.
I have one more question. Are there any non-bond funds being used for the high schools, like Fund 25? For the high schools at all?
Not at this time. And so we've seen on projects of our past, like the Michelle Obama campus replacement project, also funded mostly with bond. And there was another facilities funding source that came in that provided some supplemental funding that had to do with community use of the space. But currently the board approved budgets for both Kennedy and Richmond modernizations are all bond funded.
All right, so moving on to some construction photos. The Lake Elementary School campus replacement is a full campus replacement on an existing site that is currently occupied. Phase 1 is complete and currently being utilized. Phase 1 consisted of the admin building as well as the 1st through 6th classroom buildings. The admin building also had the library within it. There is currently some temporary use happening within the building because we do not have a multipurpose room or kindergarten classrooms currently in place. So the library, the learning center, and some of our other spaces are currently operating to accommodate those functions. So what you're going to see tonight is our kindergarten buildings as well as the multipurpose room. So this was phase 1 in the back here. This is building A, which is that admin building. Building B, building C are both our classroom buildings for 1st through 6th grade. This is building D, which is our new multipurpose room. And then we have E and F, which are our two classroom wings. This one kindergarten, as well as the playground bathrooms for 1st through 6th that face out to what will be the new playground out here. And then this is our TK facility. So that's what's currently the campus overview. This is a few weeks old, but thought it was a nice overview to be able to see the site in totality.
You gotta love drone for pictures. That's a lot better than standing on a 100-foot step ladder.
Yes, indeed, especially because I don't think I'm climbing 100 steps anytime soon. The next one, you can see building F here. In the previous months, we didn't have a solid roof on top, and now we do. So the joists have been installed. And these are starting to show our mechanical equipment or our ductwork being installed. So we're currently in what we call rough-in. So the utilities that run behind the walls or above the ceiling are currently being installed to make ready for insulation and then drywall. You did see that the buildings are being built in progression, so they're really working on building F, then moving to E, then to D. So this shows you that we have E and F back here that have their plywood sheathing on it, while building D is still in slab form. We have the slab for the main construction already poured. However, with the inclement weather we've been having, we haven't yet been able to pour the stage. So the stage is a raised concrete slab. So that's formed up here, but not yet poured. Previously, though, we were still at the yellow stage, which is our underlayment. So we have made progress by pouring the main slab. Okay. So that was it for Lake. For Hercules, guess what? We are to a ribbon cutting, my friends. Okay, nobody else has to be excited as I am. Okay.
I'm excited to see it finished.
Yeah, so the ribbon cutting is scheduled. And I am so sorry, this should not have said January 6th. It should have said February 6th. I do apologize. It does say February 6th on the flyer.
Yeah.
So forgive us for that. It is scheduled for 9:30 a.m. And there is an RSVP, so the QR code will get you there. If you would like to attend, please RSVP.
Sorry,
Yes,
this experience from the lake thing. This is a community event,
yes,
okay? Which means that you want the community to be able to see things, you want the media to be able to see things and photograph it, to be able to showcase it all. Which means you don't have staff people getting in the way of everything. That was a big problem at Lake. I mean, you saw me sitting there in the front row taking photographs, and I had all kinds of staff people jump up directly in front of the big guy with a button-down shirt with a camera in front of his face. And you can't recreate those ribbon cuttings. So we just need a little bit more control. I'll be talking with the superintendent and our communications director on that, but there's just certain things that make it more of a media event that can help benefit the community if they see where their tax dollars are going. You can't publicize a picture of the back of a teacher's head. Nope, not even the teacher wants that picture.
I will pass that along. So we have been working on finishing things up. The casework has been completed. This is the workroom that is between the different classroom spaces. So that's been completed. Previously, we were just putting in the landscaping, so more of the landscaping and the flat work has been completed since I was previously here. They have poured what we call the Sundial Plaza, which is at the top of this amphitheater space. And that's what's been going on there. We've been doing a lot of punch lists and areas below the patio canopy covers. Next project is the Shannon Multipurpose Room Replacement Project. Currently, the multipurpose room at Shannon is a portable. And so this is building a true multipurpose room as well as a kitchen space. We're relatively early in this project, but it's at a similar place as Lake's multipurpose room. So previously we just had the glue lamp beams is put up. Now they have been uncovered. The joist has been installed in between. This metal structure that you see here is the edge of the stage. So previously, we were right here with metal structure, right? And so now you can see the framing has begun, the wall framing, and we're continuing to move forward with framing. In the next picture, you'll see that we have some plywood sheathing that is up and around the kitchen area, which is this lower, it has a lower roof than the main multi-purpose room space. Finally, we have our critical needs project with Kennedy. We are doing the admin relocation project. During the Christmas break, Mother Nature didn't cooperate quite as much as we were hoping. So of course it rained again, but we have been working on the trenching. This is currently in the library quad space. We're bringing new utilities along cutting around through the teacher parking lot, through the library quad. And so that's all in progress. And we are establishing, we're headings into the new MDF room, main distribution frame. And so one of the things we've done is install a new interior door for additional security into this space versus the exterior doors that were available here. So that's what all of the trenching is leading to. From this room, we will be distributing it out to each of the individual buildings so that we can keep our low voltage systems running after we take the main 100 and 200 down. Part of the reason why the trenching is as extensive as it is we have to go outside of the footprint of the new building. So all of these are being laid out, so they will not be underneath our new construction. And that concludes the main presentation. We do have status reports that give a little bit more detail and information about the project team for each one of the projects, as well as our monthly newsletters that should be going out tomorrow.
Thank you, Ellen. I wanted to just do a little quick plug on done several and hope to do more, maybe as the sun comes out in spring. And there's not as much mud on site, but those have been really awesome and really encourage folks to express their interest in going on site visits. It's always challenging for us to find a time that works for everybody. But, you know, the more we share our availability, the better chances we have. So hopefully we can keep doing those. Yeah, done.
You know my feelings on site visits, because we gotta have them. And I appreciate that you being able to set those things up, but it is difficult to find times because they don't want us there in the middle of the construction, which is the middle of the daytime when the sun is up. Okay. I mean, this time of year, 5 o'clock, it's dark. Okay, that's a problem for us. We don't want to inconvenience the staff by suggesting that we do something on a Saturday. It's a problem for us. I mean, I don't have a solution to it, but it is difficult. We don't want to wait until the spring or late spring or summer before we can redo these kind of things, because the construction is not going to stop and wait for us. So it is difficult. I mean, I've been fortunate enough because the position I've been in, that they've given me tours during the middle of the day, just by myself. But it still can't interrupt the construction work. But it's just, you learn so much when you actually see these things, those beautiful pictures. I guarantee you, it's not the same as the real thing. See, anybody who's been on a site visit knows that.
We do have a site visit committee, so we'll refer this challenge to the site visit committee to help schedule those and increase engagement. Thanks. On to the item 3, J. H. Financial reports.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Hill. I am the fiscal coordinator. So on the screen, and I placed some copies in the back for everyone. You'll find the October, November, and December AP checklist. This month we were able to sort it by site, and we added the resource links at the bottom. Yeah, so you should have three. One page is October, one's November, and one's December.
Done.
I'm sorry.
Got a comment?
Question,
Question?
why are we not getting financial reports? This is an AP checklist, which is great, but it's only one of many reports that we are supposed to be reviewing every month to figure out what's happening with our bond money? Where's it going? What's happening? Where's report number 2? Where's report number 13? We're just not getting these things. I haven't for a very long time. I understand you're relatively fresh coming on board. We still need financial reports because that's the primary, in my opinion, that's the primary function of the Bond Oversight Committee is to oversee the bond funds.
So the reports that came tonight are the AP checklist, and so this identifies all of the checks that have been issued and funded with the bond program. One of the things that you'll notice is it does identify, there's a column for the short account, and Megan's added a grid at the bottom that'll help you identify which bond measure is paying for each one of those items. There is a broader suite of financial reports that represents essentially the entire program going back almost 25 years. And so that's represented in two ways. One, we have the online portal where you can review that project information at any time. You can review project-specific reports for all of our active projects with some graphics. You can also review the full program reports. To answer your question specifically for report 2 and for report 13, at the board meeting on December 18th, there were some big action items that were approved by the board. It included the award of the stage design build contract, and it also included the site budget authorization form, which included decreasing a lot of bond project budgets for projects that are completed. And so there's a lot of financial pieces associated with those changes. We will be bringing the report 2 and report 13 to the next CBOC meeting. If we have them in advance of the meeting, we're happy to share them with the members as soon as they're done. I can share that Ms. Bald worked very hard to try to get all of those things completed in order to bring those reports to you tonight. But we have had some holidays and we've also had some illness. And so those reports are coming, and they will reflect all of the changes that were approved by the board on the 18th. We just didn't have them in time for tonight's meeting. But at any time, if you wanted to see what the exact status is of any of the active projects or the program overall, we do have the online reporting portal. You know, one of the things that we heard from the committee is that's great, but can you just print it out for us and put it in the packet? And so we can do that as well.
And I'll just mention that I think now that we have a larger board, it's good to kind of bring back the training on the a training / just kind of engagement session on the online portal to dive in, pull reports and start utilizing it. Not just a kind of a sit and listen to the training, but maybe an interactive kind of let's go explore certain projects and certain reports. So I think that'd be great.
And also, Melissa, could you send out that the link to that portal to everybody on the committee so we can look at it and explore it? Secondly, I too am concerned about the financial reports because, as Don said, that's why we're here, to follow the money. And in 20, and we used to have the complete set is the consolidated, which shows what's going on now and what's about to be finished. Then there's the, number 2, which goes by site, it lists every single school. And it's a history of since the 2015, I think it is. And then they have the, report, that's number 2. They have the, checklist, and then they had the, what's the other one? The last one is the,
Report 13.
yeah, 13, which is an overview. It shows you what's, and it's a projection too. And also, there's a 13A, which is a reconciliation, and we used to get that. So we need these reports, and I looked back through the agendas. In 20 and 21, we had, out of the 12 months, we had 12 reports. In 22, we had, 1 out of 12 on time. We had 6 out of 12, were late, like in other words, 6 of them came in November. We had a resolution and we shut down the board, shut down the committee, because this is one of the reasons we did that. In 2023, we had 1 out of 12 complete sets of the report, and it was late. In 2024, we had 3 sets of the complete report, 3 out of 12. And of course, in January, we don't have it again. So it's not just some people were sick. We've got to get these reports out, and I think it's essential. And the cocoa tax was talking about suing for that, the FAI, and a couple other things. So this is a serious matter, and I think it should be taken up and given, you know, I know you're new, but we got to get these reports out.
So the consolidated budget status report is available at any time and reflects the most up-to-date information. Part of the pivot that we made, historically, we had a team member here that did all of the reports essentially by hand. And when she left and then retired, we had a really hard time filling her shoes. That's really when we transitioned to accountability and the online reporting. But I absolutely agree. We haven't gotten into a good cadence of printing those reports and providing them here. And we haven't had that workshop where we bring in some laptops and everybody can get familiar with the portal and pulling the information that they'd like to see. We're happy to do that at the February meeting. So we're happy to bring that to the committee. And I made a note to add the link to the portal. We'll send it out to everyone in email. I made a note just to add it to the agenda. Anyone who looks at the agenda, it's available at any time. And that way people could also, anyone who checks out our agenda would be able to also get to the portal to see those reports. It is on the district's website. If you go to the financial reports, the link to the portal is there, but we'll add it to this agenda with the committee's permission and send it out via email.
I've been to is that the old portal that we always had on there?
On the
Because I didn't
financial,
see any updates on it.
so on the financial reports page, it now has the link so that you can go on the online portal.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for the financial reports?
I have a question about 2 items. AP checklist, October. There are the last 2 items on page 2. Employers Advocate, Inc. So, my question is, why, it looks like, so what's that for? Basically?
It's an excellent question. And if I could make a plug for an additional staff agenda item for an upcoming meeting, I'd love to bring the bond program management plan to the committee. We have a lot of new members. Dawn knows I do I'm proud of it because what the bond program management plan is it's a searchable document where you can look up project delivery method, which is where we started the meeting. You could look up project labor agreement, which is a term we're going to talk about a little bit more now. And so as questions come up on topics that might be new to some committee members and not new to others, the program management plan is available on our district website and it has a narrative section that provides some detail as well as potentially some additional resources. Employer advocates, there are labor coordinators. So the district has had a project labor agreement since essentially, I want to say 2000. It also goes back more than 2 decades. And so the project labor agreement is an agreement, it's a contract that's signed between the district and our labor, our trades. So the projects, are bond funded projects more than $1 million, are project labor agreements. And so employers advocates, there are labor coordinators. And they meet with our contractors to make sure that, the contractors performing services on our jobs sign essentially an attachment A, and then meet the terms of the project labor agreement. And so it's really an agreement between us and local labor that build all of our projects.
So could you please tell me the company, the name of the company that you said is Oversight?
Absolutely. Employers Advocate.
Thank you.
They're also kind of known CEA, so it's Construction Employers Advocate, but they are our labor coordinators. And so they attend, we have something at the beginning of our construction projects. It's called a markup meeting. And what happens is they'll identify a scope of work in the project and then they'll say who claims this work. And say, for example, the carpenters will say, we claim this work. And so if there's any question, when a subcontractor comes in and they have their scope of work, those are the kinds of things that get clarified. And if there are any concerns about labor during the course of the project, we work with the labor coordinator to bring those to resolution, ideally here locally, which we've been very successful in doing.
I just have one question on the sites and then bond funds. It looks like for most sites, it's pretty consistent with, like Lake, for example, is mainly Measure D, but then there's the occasional Measure A that'll show up in there, and same for other sites. So I thought that my impression was that a site or a bond kind of was always consistent with a site. So I'm just wondering if you could explain that decision to when does another bond come in? For example, Lakes, mainly the bond for Measure B, but then occasionally.
Great question. So we essentially have, if I had to categorize our projects, I would say we have 3 categories. So we have what we call legacy projects, and those are the projects that were approved by the board prior to the 2016 facility master plan. Then we have what we call the 2016 facility master plan projects, and those are the projects that are most familiar, most of the projects that you see here. The 2016 facility master plan projects are funded with a combination of, as you pointed out, 9745 and 9748, which is also Measure D 2010 and Measure E 2012. And so those were the funding sources that were available to fund the 2016 facility master plan when it was approved by the board. The other resource that you see here is 9747, and that's Measure R. And so Measure R was approved by the voters in March, and there was not already a board-approved plan for the implementation of Measure R that came after. And so, as many of you know, Measure R is funding Kennedy's modernization, Richmond's modernization. It also had an early Kennedy High School Fields project that it funded as well. And so for, so a lot of the funding for Siege is coming from 9790. So 9790 is also, it's what we call a non-bond resource, meaning it doesn't belong to a measure. So, right, we talked about Measure D, Measure E, Measure R. So as a district, we've received over like $230 million in state funds. So we have a project, it's funded with bond dollars. We go and leverage state dollars, either through a modernization application, a new construction application, seismic, CTE, et cetera. So we apply for those dollars and then those dollars come back from the state to refund the dollars that we leveraged them with. So we use our bond dollars to leverage state dollars, local dollars to get state dollars. State dollars come, a lot of times state dollars come and the project's already built. You can't apply for those state dollars till you have an approved application from the Division of State Architect. But as those dollars come back, then we use those state dollars to push our bond program even further, right? To fund additional projects. And so in November of 2023, the board, when they approved the budgets for the Kennedy and Richmond modernizations, that essentially was the Measure R authority. And so the board also approved at that meeting to take the state dollars that have now come to our district from the non-bond measure resource 9790 to fund Siege. At the meeting on December 18th, the board increased Siege's budget. So it was originally funded with D&E, small project, 2.9 million. The board took those state dollars that we've received, 43 million. At the board meeting on December 18th, there was project savings from legacy projects prior to 2016 and the 2016 facility master plan projects. Those project savings and then leveraging those developer fee dollars is how we were able to then increase Siege's budget. So Siege is going to have a lot of funding sources. Because it's been put together across a few board approvals. And I know that that's a lot of pieces that we just talked about, but that's why I think the information on the AP checklist can be really helpful when you learn how to read the short accounts, because then you're able to tie that exactly to the bond measure. One of the things that we're working on with accountability is a new financial report to bring to the committee so that we can look at the history of the measures and how that funding was used to fund projects across the years. So to be continued.
Is one of the sources developers fees? In other words, your budget originally under R was 43 million. And then you added 18 million to get 61 is now the budget. And that 18 million is made up of everything you could scrap together from all the programs. Would you just explain what a developer fee is?
Absolutely. It's a great question. And so, developer fees, are based, it comes out of the ed code. And the idea is that whenever you have residential or commercial construction within a district boundary, right? You have development can bring students, right? And so, I like to think of developer fees as student housing dollars. So part of the rules associated with developer fees is if a developer say they're going to build an apartment building within the boundaries of the district, they're going to pay a accessible square footage fee to the district per square foot. And that's a fee then that the district collects. The district collects those dollars, but in order to use those dollars, they have to be associated with growth. The developer paid those dollars to the district for growth, right? New students that were going to be in the district's boundaries. And so when you spend those dollars, you have to have a nexus for growth. TK being a new grade, new student seats, new student housing that's needed for new students because of the younger age. Qualifies for developer fees. And so as we're building new TK facilities at Lake and at Siege, we're able to use those developer fee dollars. Does that?
Let me add on developer fees. If you don't have development, you can't charge anybody. And this has been one of our problems in West County, to some extent. In Richmond, Richmond is 3 times bigger than any other city in West County. Yeah, actually more than 3 times bigger. And we just don't have any development going on in Richmond. That's hurting us. I mean, we're both businesses and residential. San Pablo's been having a fair amount of residential being built out there. You look at the old City Hall area. Well, it's just a lot of residential units there, because that's where you get the nexus of the growth. Yeah, you can put a business in, but you say, well, we can get a developer fee, but there's no growth, no kids living there.
So the idea for commercial, and I agree, commercial is at a much lower rate. The idea is that if people work within the boundaries, a lot of times parents will bring students to be close to where they work, right? So if you were to work somewhere else, and you weren't able to get to your students, and so it is a much smaller fee for commercial, but that's the nexus for growth, is that as there's a new business, there are workers might bring their students.
Pinole has a little bit of development going on right now. Hercules has a smaller amount. El Cerrito, they're planning on putting more of those prefab things at the Plaza BART station, but that's just about the only development they've got going on there. So we got ourselves a problem with the developer fee part. We used to be able to count on that for a lot of things. You go into some of the other communities outside of West County, they've got a lot of development going on. We just don't have it here.
I just had one, it's the smallest invoice on here, but the US Bank, what is that for, a bank account? Or when does the bank invoice the bond program?
So when you see the vendor listed as US Bank, what that means is that we had to use a credit card to purchase it.
Okay,
So not everything that you buy,
That's just a
there
credit
isn't
card.
always a vendor that will
Okay.
accept it. And so when you see US Bank, that's what it means. We still create a requisition and a purchase order in our financial system, but the vendor's the bank because we use the credit card to make the purchase, the district's credit card to make the purchase.
all right. Any other comments? We're just at 8 o'clock. I'd like to get into the bylaws, even though I want to try to, adjourn around 8:15. Are folks in agreement with that?
Sorry. I'm concerned about the time as well. I really am. I mean, Prestige is something that's happening now. The bylaws, it'd be nice to be able to get them done right away. But what's going on in Prestige, we haven't got real reports, and there's a lot of questions to be asked about Prestige. I'm just concerned that may be taking up a fair amount of our time, plus the other items on there. We want to put off.
Yeah, we could jump to, we could put the bylaws off, we could jump to Prestige. I think the other things can wait.
Yeah.
There's nothing pressing.
But even the bylaws, I mean, that was 19 pages. And
Yeah,
next month will be even more pages.
we gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, we do, but I mean, just having an opportunity to read them and review them and talk about them amongst each other, or reaching out to me, as the person that put them together.
Yeah.
Having a little bit of time might be beneficial. I'm just thinking out loud.
Okay, unless there's an objection, Lorraine?
I was just gonna make a motion that we, table, L, N, O, P. The only thing we take up is each M for tonight. We table the others till next meeting.
Okay, let's end with P, just a call for items. So I'll just offer an amendment of L, N, and O. And then Q and R.
Probably easier to say what we'll, yeah.
We will stick with,
Not gonna do.
we'll stick with M, E, and S and T. Unless there's objection,
I like T.
okay, like T, okay. Thank you. All right, so let's move on to Stage Elementary School. Don requested this item, discuss the rebuild project funding and timeline and pose clarifying questions. I'll turn it to you.
Okay. On December 18th, Stage came before the board, pretty much for the first time since it blew up back in June or July. And one of the problems that we had at that meeting in particular, but where it was approved to go ahead and rebuild, but also the authorizing the funding and the timeline on there, is that just like with every other meeting, we only had a couple of days' notice on there, and there wasn't hardly any information in the agenda packet itself. But even worse, they had just sworn in 2 out of the 5 school board members just about an hour before. And even today, 26 days later, we have no way of contacting those board members to lobby them one way or the other about it, or to ask their thoughts about this. And they were just as perplexed as some of us in the audience about what is being presented, what's going on here. But there were a lot of questions. I tried to get up and to ask questions. I was booed out of the room. I was threatened. I was people trying to fight with me. I was called a racist just for wanting to ask questions, the kinds of questions that we might be asking as a CBOC, because this is bond money going on these things. So I've now got a number of things I would like to hear comments from from staff about them. And I don't know if you want to get a presentation from them, or you want me just to start diving into questions, or
are there any, I mean, how would you like to engage with this agenda item?
So what I would like to share, in the spirit of partnership is, we received the proposed agenda on Thursday, and then we posted on Friday. And so we are happy to present on any item, the technical details of lease back that we presented to the board, the stage. We are happy to answer questions and partner, but I don't know what any of the questions are, and I don't have a presentation because one wasn't asked for. And so one of the things that might be really helpful as we move forward is if there are topics or questions or things that you would like a lot more information on, if we as staff can receive that before the meeting, we're happy to put together a presentation and bring those materials so that we're all having that conversation together. It's just, I don't have anything prepared because this isn't my item. So I'm happy to answer the questions that we're able to answer now. But I think we as staff could do a much better job if we knew that those were the items that you wanted us to prepare to bring to the meeting.
Okay, maybe I can ask some of these questions and bring up some of the concerns, and you can just play by ear, because I've been trying to get information from the district about some of these things, and I've been stonewalled. Quite frankly, I mean, I go through the communications office trying to do stories about this kind of thing. I've just been stonewalled for the past 4, 5, 6 months, and it's frustrating. But I mean, again, the lack of contact between the communications department and the 2 new school board members has been difficult to work with. It appears that, I mean, sorry, a little backstory. On a lot of our contracts in the past, you would have open bids at the school board meetings where they would open them up. Okay, you knew who was bidding, you knew what the dollar amounts were. But we've got like Alton Construction has received 2, 3 contracts in the past several years. That I'm not against Alton. That's not the point. It just happens to be Alton, and it just comes across like they're no bid contracts almost, because we don't know about who else is bidding and what the dollar amounts were. They said that was a concern. That's the kind of thing that does not build trust in the community when they hear about new bid contracts. That doesn't sit well with anybody with government money on there. Anything about the design of the school, we know nothing about that. It'd be helpful to know about that. I mean, and I'm not just talking about the CBOC, we're talking about the public as well. I mean, what the pervasive attitude of the people at that December 18th meeting was, we don't care, build us a new school. We expect to be able to bring our kids back to this new school tomorrow morning. Because they've been misled by a lot of people, especially some of the trustees, guaranteeing them a brand new school in 1 year. even though there was no funding for it or no plans for it or anything like that. For the timeline we're involved here, are the kids gonna be relocated to Dijon or some other facility, or are they gonna be moved back onto Stige while the construction is going on? Because that may be 2 or 3 years before they, according to the timeline. The $18 million in found money. I mean, I have flipped open the sofa cushions in my house numerous times, and I've never found $18 million. I said, you need to teach me how you do that. But I understand that this is leftover money from completed projects. But I thought that it was required that you had to actually go to the board to put that money back in the kind of the general bond fund. And I didn't see where that happened. But we're counting on that 18. I mean, I know the board's gonna, rubber stamp and say, yes, we're gonna take that money.
I apologize for interrupting, but I'd like to keep us on time for 8:15. Would you like to share all your questions for the record and then we kind of adjourn, or would you like to establish some answers to some facts about Stige in the time remaining?
I'd like to go, it'll only take me about another 2 minutes for these questions.
Okay.
And if they've got an ability to respond, that'd be great.
Okay.
To any of them. But also on the money part of it, I've been told by other people that seem to be an authority on this that Prop 2 money can't be used for design build. That's a question that I'd like answered on there. I don't know that. I didn't read all of Prop 2. Also, there was, Fred Powell got up there and spoke on December 18th, pointing out that back in 2010, they had approved plans, approved by DSA. And that was what, $4 million worth? That it's one of the many plans that were discarded by the facilities department. But is there a reason why that they can't be tweaked? It seems like that would save us several $1 million and maybe quite a bit of time. If those could be used. Which we want to be able to see something about the timeline, a realistic timeline. How come it takes, even for an elementary school, 3, 4, even 5 years to build an elementary school, except for this one, we're getting it done in about 2 years. I'm not quite sure I understand that. Again, we'd love to see more reports and presentations on exactly what's going to be going on here. I was not pleased over the past 6 or 7 months that the public, quite frankly, was excluded from these so-called public meetings that the district held. They were held with the Stige community. The rest of us weren't invited to them. And even and the same thing with media. We got numerous newspapers in Richmond now, and we just weren't included on this. But also, I mean, there really weren't public meetings, but there was also no freedom to speak at some of these meetings. The one that I showed up there at the Booker T. Anderson, where I had people jumping up there in my face, spitting at me and calling me a racist because they've been told by the board trustee that I stole the money for Stige back in 2010 to give to the rich white folk of El Cerrito and Kensington to build the Taj Mahal, even though the school had been completed a year before. But it says it doesn't facilitate freedom of speech or encouraging speech from people when they're threatened by the community members at some of these meetings. The same thing at that school board meeting on December 18th. I did not feel protected. I needed to get the hell out of there. I no longer felt safe in there. And that was after only 4 seconds of talking about what I wanted, after trying to ask my questions. But these are kind of things that I wouldn't mind getting some sort of report on. But if you want to touch on anything.
Feels like a little bit of a drill, but I think I got him. All right, give me a shot. So, in regards to no bid, different delivery methods have different statute for what that bid process looks like. Design bid build belongs in the public contract code, lease back, and design build belong in the ed code. So there is a bidding process. There's an RFQ and RFP process. There was an interview process, qualifications, pre-qualification. It's just a different process. And in all 3 methods, we follow the statutory outline of what needs to be done, and we'll be audited on all of that by our performance auditors. In regards to what the design's gonna look like, one of the reasons why we chose the strategy of progressive design build for Stage is because one of the benefits of design build is it's a faster completion. And that's actually stated in actual statute. It says the legislature finds. And we know that it was unexpected for everyone that they were relocated to a separate co-location at the middle school campus. And one of the priorities of the board has been to return them back to Stage. They will not return to Stage until Stage is rebuilt. So they will stay at the temporary campus until Stage is rebuilt.
That's not what that community thinks.
Okay, so, but that's what's happening. So they have a temporary campus, just like we had with Michelle Obama. Stage is small in terms of that geographic space. It's gonna create great efficiency for the design builder to be able to take over that site and then to manage the means and methods to pull off that project. In terms of more details related to what the design's gonna look like, we did receive recommendations that Stage be equitable to Lake. And so we have the Lake design. Some of you have seen it by visiting Lake. Lake does have a suite design. And so that is the conceptual design for Stage's campus as well. In regards to the additional dollars, it did show up as a separate board item. It's called the site budget authorization form, and that's the form that identified the projects and the amounts of savings. That is a separate board action, and that's essentially the process we've been using since 2016. So if you wanted to see what some of those look like, you can search on Assembly, which is where our board meetings are held, site budget authorization form, and you can follow some of that history. In regards to Prop 2, so Prop 2's legislative hearings by the state allocation board are just getting ready to get started. There's a meeting planned here pretty soon. We already have about $16 million in applications already submitted to the state that we're standing in line for additional state dollars to come back here locally. We'll continue to see what all of the rules for Prop 2 will be. This is something that happens after something's approved by the voters. A lot more rules roll out, and we are already prepared to follow those. Some of the new requirements we know is that we'll need to have a facilities master plan in order to submit those applications. And so we'll continue to follow the actions of the state allocation board and all of the requirements that they'll place on Prop 2. But this isn't unlike what we've seen before. State dollars used to be audited by the state. They're now audited by a third-party auditor. They added a whole bunch of rules after we already did it. We make it work, as do other districts throughout the state. Lastly, you did mention, Architect did attend the meeting saying, that they could do it. The opportunity to bid as a design builder for the procurement was open to everyone. And so if there was a desire to propose as a design builder, that was an option that was available, and he did not partner to submit a bid. And so that's kind of my really, really quick way of trying to address a number of the questions that you've raised. Happy to do a more detailed presentation at a future meeting.
Thank you. I appreciate what you did provide, and we'll talk.
Okay, terrific.
Could you also add a history about Stage? What happened? One of the superintendents promised them it would be done, and that was, years ago. And also, I read over the resolution, and it sounds to me like there must have been a lawsuit. Because on one of the be further resolved, that the West Contra Costa Unified School Board of Education directs staff to send updates and communications quarterly to the Stage Elementary School community to update them on the progress of the rebuild of the school. If there was something like that, would you just tell us what's going on or what has gone on with the school?
Absolutely. There was a lawsuit. part of the response to the lawsuit was the district's procurement. I think, a component of the lawsuit was to address the facilities conditions at Stage, and rebuilding the site will address those needs. I would say that, Ellen and her team do a fantastic job, and there's community engagement on all of our projects. I think the resolution further iterates that commitment. And, you know, same thing for Kennedy and for Richmond and for Siege. When you have a big project, you're re-envisioning, we have steering committees in different ways. But I think one of the things that we've learned over the years is every community has maybe a more preferred or a more valuable form of outreach, meaning it's not one size fits all. And that's not something that's perfectly prescribed today. There's a lot of different strategies that we have to communicate well with the community throughout the project. We have some ideas about bringing that information forward. I would say the newsletters that you guys receive bring some of that information. I know Dawn has a lot of great ideas. I'm sure many of you do too. So it's not a one size fits all. There's a lot of different ways to partner and to bring updates. And, you know, we look forward to continuing to demonstrate that over the next couple of years. Because these design build is fast moving. But that's important to return them to their site.
All right, thank you. That was well done. Rapid fire.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick, are there any item P, are there any, just call for agenda items, anything off the top of your head or, yes?
I think I mentioned to Melissa before, K&N is our company that sells the bonds. And they give a report every year to the board, and gave their 2024 report. And I just was wondering if either they or Megan or somebody from the district or whatever could just show that slideshow and explain that to us.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? All right, item S, next scheduled meeting is February 10th. We'll stick with 6:15. And, you know, don't know if we want to adjust that moving forward in the year, but that's been working. So with that, item T, yes.
I just wanted to have a clarification before, and in the bylaws, it says that the elections for the officers, et cetera, will be held in December. The new officers will start running the committee meetings in February. Now, are we going to have are you going to be running next month? Or
No, Don's on it. Yeah, I mean, we missed our December meeting where we were supposed to do the election. I remember we did it last year in December, and then January you kept the chair, and then I assumed the chair in February. So I mean, with that, we'll be back on schedule.
Okay.
Okay. Adjourned at 8:22. We're good. Ryan didn't get his minutes. All right, just make that. Have to make sure, and if it's later.